Hello and welcome to SAP Learning Academy and welcome to this tutorial. In this tutorial today I'm going to tell you about the performance guidelines for ABAP development on the SAP HANA database. As you might know that the SAP modules are now converting onto the SAP HANA database, so it is important to know the basic performance guidelines. Those needs to be followed if you're writing the ABAP code on SAP HANA database. So I'm going to tell you about the five guidelines, five rules that needs to be followed here. So rule number one is the keep the result set small. Rule number two, minimize the amount of transfer data. Rule number three, minimize the number of data transfers. And rule number four, the minimize the search overhead. And the last one, keep load away from the database. Now I will be explaining you briefly about all these rules. So about the first one, keep the results set small. So do not retrieve rows from the database and discard them on the application server using check or exit. Meaning that if you are retrieving some amount of data and you are discarding on the application server, so what is the need of retrieving all the data from the database? So you select or you read the data you need from the database, then you use it on the application server. So you should not just take a lot of data from the database and discard it in the application server. Next is the make sure that you use the where clause as specific as possible, because using the where clause you can actually select the particular data set you want. Now we're going to the rule number two, minimize the amount of transfer data. So here you need to use the select statement with the number of fields you need. So you should not use like select star, because if you use the select star, meaning that you are actually transferring all the fields, but if you need only 4 or 5 fields of the whole structure, so you should just write those 4 or 5 fields in your select statement. And you should also use the aggregation function like count, min, max, sum, average instead of transferring all the rows to the application server. Meaning that if you have the possibility to sum the data or to aggregate the data, then definitely you should go with this function so that the number of rows can be shorter and the data can be better. So now coming to the third rule, minimize the number of data transfers. And here you need to use joins or subqueries instead of select loops. Now we have seen that many developers write multiple select loops in order to read some data. But actually you have the possibility to do the joins. If you have the possibility to do the joins or read the subquery, then you should go with these joins or subqueries instead of write the nested loops. Next is the use of select for all entries instead of lots of select or select singles, because using this for all entries you can actually read the specific or matched data into your select statement. And for modifying operation like insert, update or delete, you should use the array operation. Should be preferred to single operation when changing the many records, because here array operation will be faster and the data can be inserted or deleted with the grouped operation. So now I will be talking about the rule number 4, the minimize the search overhead. So here you need to define and use appropriate secondary indexes, meaning that if you are accessing a large table of your HANA database, then you should not use it, or if you find any performance issue while accessing the large table, then you can actually create a secondary indexes of that large table and you can actually access the secondary indexes for your operation purposes. Now the rule number 1 is the rule from the database, meaning that you should avoid reading data redundantly, meaning that if you are accessing the data again, instead of that actually you can read the data once and keep the data in any internal table or any buffering table, and from there actually you can read the data for your reading purposes. And you should use table buffering if possible and do not bypass it, So meaning that you can use the table buffering of any large table. So because the table buffering is kind of an interface between the database layer and the application layer and the sort data in your ABAP programming. So once you actually read the data from your database, then you must do the sorting by the order by clause, because if you do that, then your data will be sorted, and that can be actually linked into, or that can be better for the operation purposes. So that's all about the tutorial. If you have any question, write in the below comment box. And if you have not subscribed my channel yet, please subscribe to SAP Learning Academy. And if you have liked the tutorial, you can like and share with your friends and colleagues. And also you can see my other tutorials. I've given the links in the video description. Thank you for watching. Have a nice day. See you again with next tutorial.